The 9 levels of Bitcoin, from 0 Bitcoin all the way up to 100 plus. What level are you at? Now, don't tell me down below in the comments. Just think about it as we go along. Think about how you can jump levels and what it means to be in each level. By the way, if you want to see future videos like this, let me know down below in the comment section. Also, if you want to trade crypto, there are links underneath the video. You can check out WEEX. You can start trading in just a few minutes. You don't need a KYC, you don't need a VPN, and they have a special bonus when you start trading now. You can get access to leverage. Now, Bitcoin, everyone wants it when it's gone up. Everyone wishes they had bought lower, but the thing is, a lot of people want it for lower price and aren't willing to buy it at the current price. They say, hey, now that we're at $103,000, it's too high. I'll buy it when it hits 80,000. And then we go down to 80 and they say, well, you know, the economy's not looking that good. The stock market's down. I'll buy it when we hit 60, 50, 40, 30. And it continues on. Most people don't have the mental capability to buy Bitcoin and then hold it, or they don't have the financial capabilities to buy it. I think most of it is a mental thing, being able to cut back on expenses, being able to invest over the long term and think with a strategy for how you'll invest and dollar cost averaging over time. So with that in mind, let's go through the different levels of Bitcoin holders. Now, I thought about this today because I have with me the Bitcoin baby. You might hear him bouncing in the background, and he has started his accumulation journey. He has maybe $100 worth of Bitcoin through ETF in an account that will go to him at some point. So he's already past step 0, which is 0 Bitcoin. 0, not $1 in Bitcoin. Now, this is getting harder and harder to do because most people are getting exposed to Bitcoin whether they like it or not. We have MSTR that's included in more and more indices every single year. So some people are getting exposure, and even Tesla, right? Tesla is in every single ETF out there, and they have some Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So I would not include this type of exposure as like holding Bitcoin, but there is some exposure even if you have 0 Bitcoin, if you're invested into different ETFs. But still, I would count you as 0 if you don't have some amount of money in IBIT or some shares of IBIT or FBTC, some Bitcoin ETF, or you actually hold spot Bitcoin. Now, as time goes on, people will get more and more exposed to Bitcoin, whether they like it or not. We'll have IBIT in more different like retirement date funds, or Bitcoin will be included in different retirement portfolios. But right now, if you have not gone out and specifically tried to buy Bitcoin or one of these ETFs, I would include you in the 0 category. Now, what's this mean? Well, you don't have exposure to the best performing asset of the last 15, 16 years that continues to get widely adopted. Does that mean that you can't become wealthy? No. At that point, I mean, you're just looking for investments that will beat the, not inflation rate, because that's around 3 or 4%, at least that's what it's reported at, but you're looking for something that beats monetary debasement of 10% a year. So S&P 500, you're pretty much treading water unless you keep some of your expenses fixed, like with a mortgage, and then you don't inflate the rest of your life too much. But for the most part, people go and basically get market returns. They just save money for long enough that they can eventually retire. Otherwise, you're buying rental properties. Maybe you can become wealthy that way. But Bitcoin, I think, has been one of the best ways to get wealthy if you can just hold and get through the downturns and just continue to accumulate, which many people have a hard time doing. So 0 Bitcoin is level 1, or we'll call it level 0. The next level is 0.001 Bitcoin. Now, at the time of this recording, that's only $100. There's 21 million Bitcoin that will ever exist, but a lot of them are lost, 5 million or so. There are a lot of entities that hold tens of thousands of Bitcoin. So I would not even include that in like the available Bitcoin, because some of that is just going to be held forever, right? A lot of large entities just don't want to sell Bitcoin. They're never going to need to sell Bitcoin. So when you look at it, the average amount of Bitcoin that someone can have on Earth is a little bit higher than that 0.001 Bitcoin. However, the median might be around that 0.001 if everyone were going to go try to buy Bitcoin, but not everyone's got the money either. So if you buy 0.001 Bitcoin, you probably have more than most people will hold on Earth in the future. You you're probably one of the 100 million or so people that hold Bitcoin right now. So you're starting your journey. Is it anything to write home about? Are you going to be able to retire on that? No, I don't think so. Even if Bitcoin hits $10 million, it's still not enough to retire. It's not even close to enough to retire at that point. But it still is something. It gets you started. It gets you thinking about Bitcoin. It starts the journey of accumulating assets. So, $100, again, is that going to help you retire even if it does 100x? No, but everyone's got to start somewhere. So you're starting your accumulation journey, which is fantastic. Next level, 0.01. And we're not just going to go up by 10x every time, but 0.01 is important. I mean, that's about $1,000 here today. Many people can't cover a $1,000 expense, an emergency. So being able to put $1,000 into Bitcoin is a good step, right? It's more than a lot of people can put into Bitcoin. Now, again, are you going to be able to retire if 100x's? No. Even if 1,000x's, are you going to be able to retire? Probably not. I don't think many people are going to be able to retire on $1 million, at least depending on where you live. Most people will have enough expenses that wouldn't allow for it. But still, it's a good place to start. It's more than most people will ever hold. It's more than most people that probably hold. And again, whether you can put in $1,000 or $5,000, whatever it is, it's going to be an asset that probably performs quite well. So don't just think that because it's just $1,000, it's not worth putting into Bitcoin if you feel strongly that Bitcoin's going to do well, which I do. So I started with, I think it was around $1,000, maybe it was $10,000 the first time that I ever bought. And then I accumulated from there. The next step is that 0.1 mark. And again, I won't go 10x every time, but again, just thinking logically about it, it's around $10,000. That's the cost of a new car or a used car. Again, most people can't even afford a used car. Like they can't go buy it cash. So to be able to put 5 figures into an asset that's quite volatile, if you can hold on to it for a long time, you'll probably do quite well. Again, if you start looking at Michael Saylor's prediction of $13 million Bitcoin in 20 years, okay, that's real money. That's $1.3 million that you'd have at this point if you're able to hold on to it for that long. And it's not the end of the journey either. You can still accumulate even if you have 0.1. So maybe you're continuing to accumulate to the next level. But that's a really good start. Now, again, are you going to be extremely wealthy? Maybe if Bitcoin takes over the world and is the global reserve currency, but still, you're not gonna be balling out with massive beach vacation homes if Bitcoin goes up to 15 million and you have 0.1. But maybe you accumulate up to 0.25, which is the next barrier. That is the amount that the average millionaire could buy right now. Like if all the Bitcoin was split between all the millionaires, it would be about that 0.25 level. So millionaires are not going to be able to buy 0.25 Bitcoin at some point in the future. And it makes sense because let's say Bitcoin gets to $1 million, it 10x's. 0.25 Bitcoin is going to be $250,000. Most millionaires can't go out and invest $250,000 into something. Sounds crazy, but a lot of millionaires are millionaires from their house appreciating, and they're millionaires from their businesses. They're millionaires from 401ks over 40 years. They're not able to move $250,000 in cash over to Bitcoin. And it's a moving target too. So even if they try to, like they start doing $50,000 at a time, Bitcoin might run away and they might not be able to buy that full Bitcoin. So 0.25 in the Michael Saylor case of $13 million Bitcoin might be enough to retire. Keep in mind that is 20 years from now. So that might be the equivalent of $3 or $4 million in future money. So maybe that's still not enough depending on how much you spend. I know it sounds crazy, but $3 or $4 million in 20 years might not be enough to retire depending on how you want to live. But that's a really good start, especially if you're diversified outside of that too. Let's say you have a quarter of a Bitcoin and you continue to like dollar cost average, and then you have a 401k, and then you have, your house that you pay off in 20, 30 years, maybe a couple investments outside of that. You're doing well. And then the next step, 0.5 Bitcoin. That might be the goal this cycle. Last cycle, I feel like the goal was 1 Bitcoin, like to become a whole coiner. But if the market continues to rally, half a Bitcoin is the new Bitcoin, because if we go up to $140,000 Bitcoin, that's twice the price that we were at the peak last cycle. That's extremely hard for wealthy individuals to buy. Like if you want to buy, let's say you could buy $30,000 a year of Bitcoin, that still might not be enough to buy a full Bitcoin ever, because we might continue pushing up to the point where you just can't get up to a full Bitcoin. So half a Bitcoin, fantastic goal for a lot of people. That's half of 6 figures here today. And if you dollar cost average, if you've been buying since, we started the channel, you would have been buying the entire bear market. You would have been buying with me because I talked about it a lot during the bear market. We were buying at $15,000, $16,000, $17,000 for weeks and months. We were buying under $20,000 for 9 or 10 months. So yeah, it's easy to accumulate like that if you have a good job and you have a good head on your shoulders and you're willing to go through the bear market. The next step is 1 Bitcoin. Obviously, whole coiner status. Everyone wants it. Not a lot of people are going to be able to get there. It's still attainable somewhat for people that have accumulated assets for a while and have strong conviction, or people that have a really strong income, but it's becoming harder and harder. $100,000 Bitcoin is very different than $40,000 Bitcoin, which is where we were just a year and a couple months ago. Now we have large entities like BlackRock and Fidelity, MSTR, 3 or 4 different billion-dollar companies too that are accumulating Bitcoin. So it's becoming very difficult to buy Bitcoin, and we're seeing countries buy Bitcoin, states pass bills. So it's becoming much more expensive to become a whole coiner. I think this cycle or next cycle, it's going to be unattainable for, well, even now it's fairly unattainable for most millionaires. The average person with $1 million cannot go move $100,000 into Bitcoin unless they take out a home equity line of credit or remortgage or do something like that. Again, most money is tied up in a business or in a house or in a 401k, and sometimes you can't access those funds to go buy Bitcoin with them. So after that step, Deca Bitcoiner, 10. You're in a really good spot. Obviously, you have over $1 million in Bitcoin now. If you have 10 Bitcoin, that's more than $1 million. That means that you're probably invested outside of Bitcoin too. I don't know too many people that have 10 Bitcoin that only own Bitcoin. I do know a handful of people that I think were in maybe 8 or 9, 10 years ago that put a significant amount in Bitcoin and then have continued to decumulate, is that word? To shed other assets and put it into Bitcoin because they have that tracker record and they've had so long to wrap their mind around Bitcoin, and their net worth is high now because they've just put everything into Bitcoin. I've met a handful of people like that, but with 10 Bitcoin, it's a little bit different. I feel like a lot of people that have 10 Bitcoin have really strong incomes, maybe bought in 2017, 2018, or they just bought a lot with a good income during this last bear market. At one point you could have bought 10 Bitcoin for $160,000. So a lot of people listening to this video could have done that. But again, it's hard. You don't know the bottom. And now that's over $1 million. If you consider the fact that Bitcoin appreciates 30% a year on average, or 40, 50, whatever you want to say, let's call it 30 to be conservative because it's been 45% recently. 30% a year, that's $300,000 it appreciates. That is a significant wealth driver over time. If Bitcoin hits that $13 million mark, a lot of these Deca Bitcoiners will have sold and taken profits, in my opinion, over time. Right? They're not going to make it to $130 million worth of net worth in Bitcoin. They'll probably decumulate or sell off some Bitcoin because it will be so much larger than the rest of their portfolio. Like a lot of people that I know that have 10 Bitcoin maybe have some real estate, some stocks, own a business, that kind of thing. It's going to be interesting to see how many people can actually hold 10 Bitcoin for that long if we get there. And then there's 100 Bitcoin club and up. These are very wealthy individuals already. They have businesses or have been accumulating assets for decades, most likely. Either someone that's pivoted really hard from real estate. I know some people that have sold off a lot of properties to go put into Bitcoin, but more likely it's someone that has built wealth over the long term with a business. And they had other assets that they've moved into Bitcoin, or maybe for the last 5 or 10 years, they've been able to divert hundreds of thousands of dollars a year or millions of dollars a year over to Bitcoin. These are people that are going to be wealthy no matter what. They'll probably always hold on to some Bitcoin. And yeah, they're already well taken care of because they have 8 figures in Bitcoin with probably 8 figures in other assets as well that they can draw on. So they can weather any kind of volatility. They can borrow assets. They're probably sophisticated. They have a team around them. Yeah, let's hope we get there someday. I do not have 100 plus Bitcoin. I can tell you that much. But that is going to be a very exclusive class of Bitcoiner. It's going to be very hard to get to for anyone that's not, anyone that's not extremely wealthy. Even people in nice neighborhoods, right? People that own their own businesses. A lot of them don't have all that many assets. Like, you're talking about very sophisticated individuals that have been able to build up a significant amount of wealth. Their main job probably is to think about their wealth building or their business, but then a lot of them can automate their businesses at that level. So maybe they're working at their business once or twice a week or for a few hours a day, and then they're thinking about growing assets the rest of the time. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this goes. And there are some people too that are, billionaires, or maybe have even more money than a few billion, that have 100, 200, 500, 1,000 Bitcoin just as a pure diversification play. But those people will also always hold on to their Bitcoin. It won't be a significant wealth driver for them. But at that point, if you're worth $10 billion, you just diversify enough into enough different buckets that no matter what, you're going to be well taken care of. And you're just kind of indexing the different sectors that you like. Most of the people, though, with 100 plus Bitcoin, they're focused on Bitcoin, or they're thinking about Bitcoin a lot, in my opinion. Let me know your thoughts on all this underneath the video. Let me know if you've moved up some of these levels. Oh, bless you. Our son's very funny when he sneezes. He likes to shout as loud as he can right before sneezing, and then sometimes yells afterwards too. But let me know if you've moved up any of the levels. Like, don't tell me what level you're at, but maybe say, hey, yeah, I've moved up a level or 2 levels. Don't tell me if you've moved up like 5 levels or something, because then we know you're at least in like the whole Coiner Club or something like that. Like, don't get too detailed with it, but let me know if you've been able to move up levels and maybe the time frame too that you've been able to move. Thank you so much for watching. Again, check out the link to WEEX underneath the video where you can start trading. They have bonuses. Also, BTCC has bonuses underneath the video too. I'll leave that linked. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.